We're learning more today about the victims of Thursday's mass shooting at a community college in Roseburg, Oregon. Several students and a teacher were killed. The CBC's Chris Brown is in Roseburg and joins us now live. So Chris, what can you tell us about the victims of Thursday's shooting?
You know, Andrew, they range in people who were just starting in school to people who had made wrong turns in their life and had gone back to this English class to try to set things straight, right up to their university teacher, a man named Larry Levine, who was 67 years old, who, when he wasn't teaching, was writing about things like the beautiful river behind me and the scenery here in Oregon. Lots of families coming forward, trying to share their stories of the people who were lost so tragically. One of the stories that we're hearing actually is from someone who survived, Chris Mintz. He is being called a hero. You often, sadly, hear about heroes in these situations, but you know, this may well qualify for sure. By the sounds of it, he tried to stop the gunman, Christopher Mercer, as he burst into the room. He was shot through the door 5 times. He survived. He's a former Army veteran, clearly a tough guy. He's in hospital, and his aunt is telling people that it looks like he's going to be okay. So people trying to find at least one positive story out of all this misery.
And so, Chris, what's the mood there this morning, 2 days after this tragedy?
You know, I think people have been trying to do what they can. There was a big mobile blood donor clinic yesterday that attracted hundreds and hundreds of people. It was really interesting. People came out, they wanted to donate blood, they wanted to help these victims. And yet one thing that hasn't really changed, there's been absolutely zero shift in the mindset here in Douglas County about guns and about ownership and gun control. This is a very conservative, very Republican part of a pretty liberal state, in fact, and there's not a whole lot of time for arguments over gun control. We've heard many times now that the sheriff who oversees this investigation is one of the biggest advocates against controlling guns, and we didn't see any evidence in that line yesterday. We talked to dozens of people. Not one said anything should change. In fact, one man told us that, you know, a gun is like a screwdriver. Why on earth would you ban screwdrivers?
Interesting. Also, the sheriff making an interesting stance on not naming the shooter, saying that they will never, ever say his name. Do we know, so that he's not glorified, do we know any more about the shooter, though, Chris?
The picture is becoming clearer, Andrew. It sounds like this is a man who was an outsider. He may have had some developmental disabilities that sort of pushed him along that route. We've heard now that he was upset because he couldn't have relationships in his life with women, that he dropped out of the Army, that everything he seemed to try just didn't work. But we do know one thing he did like, and that was guns. Police said they found 6 on him, and they found 7 others back at his apartment as well. And they also found a note where he apparently glorified guns and glorified serial killers. So that's the picture that's emerging this morning of Christopher Harper Mercer, who was 26 years old.
All right, Chris, thank you. The CBC's Chris Brown reporting live from Roseburg, Oregon.